we have normalized a phone-based childhood. If your kid doesn't have a phone-based childhood, they are outside of the majority. They are the minority. And we need to recognize that fact. And we need to, as parents, we need to become okay with that fact.
Yeah.
That if you are in the minority, that's okay. And it's going to create some tension between you and your kids sometimes. But one of the things that we have said regularly is we as Christian parents have got to constantly tell our kids, repeat to them, narrate for them the concept that as followers of Jesus, as Christians, we are different. Screens are omnipresent. The digital devices that we now own that are a regular part of our lives are everywhere. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we as parents face. And so we have got to just talk about it on a regular basis on the MAVEN Parent Podcast, because it is one of those issues that will not go away. And we have to continue to kind of cultivate a proper view of it. We've got to help kind of set up healthy boundaries, put on limits, and develop our kids' view of technology, a biblical view of technology, a theology of technology. So we are constantly going to hit this issue. In fact, this summer, I was at a camp for high school students and met a student there, a high school student who has AI friends. He has an AI girlfriend, and he also has an AI therapist. At this particular camp, they took away the students' digital devices, or they weren't allowed to bring them, and they were set in storage, and it was a 2-week camp. And this young man kind of lost it the first couple of days and was just overwhelmed with tremendous anxiety and even tried to escape camp. It was eye-opening. Now, a lot of us might think, oh, okay, my kid's not there. No, maybe not yet, but a lot of our kids, the trajectory of their digital habits can easily take them there. And so it was an eye-opener. It was a wake-up call. And so I wanted to just take this moment to publicly confront you, Erin. Your AI therapist has not really been very effective.
It's this issue is in some ways so generationally different because, of course, you and I grew up with real live friends, real live boyfriend and girlfriends, and real living and breathing therapists. When you told me this story, my first thought was, how could you have an AI therapist or an AI girlfriend? That doesn't compute in my mind. And also then, of course, just this is so terrifying. But it wasn't to you and I. It's upsetting to think about this young kid, but it's not like we were shocked in the sense of, oh, this is just unthinkable now, because the more and more time you and I spend with students of this next generation, the more we see things like this. And the more you see students who are completely addicted to technology. And so, like you described with that student, he was detoxing like a drug addict would detox, and was going a little crazy the first few days of camp because he was deprived of his daily hit of all of this community that he had. I'll put community in quotes. on his devices. You take away the devices, and now he feels like we've taken away his whole life.
Yeah. And so this is, I think what's helpful with a story like this is it helps us to see the trajectory that some of our kids are on right now, because it's not like you start with the AI girlfriend, boyfriend, you start with the AI therapist. No, you start with getting your first smartphone, and then you get social media apps
Or games.
and or video games. You start to spend more time with your digital devices. You start to isolate yourself from real human beings, and then you experience some of the loneliness that isolation causes, and then you look for ways to meet the real needs that you have as a human being, and then you end up there. But there's a lot of steps that get you there. And so we want to talk about not what do you do when your kid has an AI therapist. We want to talk about some of the steps even before that. And what prompted this is a really good article and some research done by Jonathan Haidt, who we have sung his praises on this podcast for a long time. He's the author of The Anxious Generation. He is one of the leading voices talking about our kids, their mental health, and their digital devices, and has really been warning us, but also then offering constructive things. And I think this is one of those articles that's a warning, but also gives some constructive stuff. The article is entitled "What Kids Told Us About How to Get Them Off Their Phones." All right, every parent who's listening right now, hopefully just stopped and said, "Okay, I got to hear more."
Yeah.
Right? What the kids told us about how to get them off their phones. And
which is why it caught your and my attention. First of all, this is an article from the Atlantic magazine, although you can get it on Jonathan Haidt's website also. And we'll link to that in the show notes. But this caught our attention because they're talking to kids and getting their perspective. And he even says in the article, he promised them whatever they said to them would remain anonymous, so that it wasn't linked back to them and their parents couldn't say, "Oh, remember you said you didn't want your phone."
Yeah, well, so he opens up the article with this paragraph. He says, "One common explanation for why children spend so much of their free time on screens goes like this. Smartphones and social media platforms are addicting them. Kids stare at their devices and socialize online instead of in person because that's what tech has trained them to want." And he would recognize that's part of the story, but he says this misses a key part of the story. And then he discusses this Harris poll that he and some other researchers collaborated on to survey American children. And now he prefaces it. This is not a comprehensive picture, but they surveyed more than 500 children ages 8 to 12 across the United States. And the survey, Haidt says, offers unmistakable evidence that the phone-based childhood is in full force. And that's a phrase that he's been using for a while. Kids now have a phone-based childhood. It's so central. We hand over devices earlier and earlier. In fact, he says a majority reported having smartphones. These are 8 to 12-year-olds. A majority reported having smartphones, and about half of the 10 to 12-year-olds said that most or all of their friends use social media. Okay. So that's a wake-up call. It's good to see just how many kids who have smartphones and are on social media, because we have got to recognize as adults that what that does, those numbers create culture. They create cultural pressure, and we've all felt it. Our kids have felt it. They go to school. The majority of students have phones. They're on social media. Our kids come home and say, I got to have a phone. And so they feel the pressure. They put the pressure on us. We look around. We see parents letting all their kids on social media, on smartphones. So we feel that pressure too. So and that just is what has normalized this. And so we have normalized a phone-based childhood. If your kid doesn't have a phone-based childhood, they are outside of the majority. They are the minority. And we need to recognize that fact. And we need to, as parents, we need to become okay with that fact.
Yeah.
That if you are in the minority, that's okay. And it's going to create some tension between you and your kids sometimes. But one of the things that we have said regularly is we as Christian parents have got to constantly tell our kids, repeat to them, narrate for them the concept that as followers of Jesus, as Christians, we are different. And on this area, we need to be different. We need to be different for a number of reasons. Truth and courage. Christians need a good dose of both in this current cultural moment. That's why you need to be at the 2025 MAVEN conference. We are going to look at the anti-Christian culture that we're currently in and the unique challenges that it presents to us. The challenges of expressive individualism, the authority of the self, and how that dominates so much of our society. And then also critical theory, the ideas that permeate every institution. And families and students need to figure out how to navigate those challenges. So join us in the Dallas-Fort Worth area on Saturday, September the 6th for the MAVEN conference. There you'll get a good dose of both truth and courage to navigate this world. Go to mavenconferences.com to register.
So I just want to interject here. I think before we even keep going, it's important to highlight they talked to 8 to 12-year-olds. So these are actually kids. They're not, young adults that are getting the kids brand. We'll often use the term kids for 20-year-olds even nowadays. They talk to actual kids, pre-teens, 8 to 12-year-olds who the majority have phones. The majority are on social media between the ages of 8 and 12. I just think oftentimes we think it comes later on. What he's saying is this is now what is normal. And we talk a lot about culture shaping us simply by just presenting to us what's normal. And so for 8 to 12-year-olds now, this is what is normal, that they would have a smartphone, that they would have complete access to the internet, that they would be on social media, and that this is just how to be a normal kid in America now. So you already started talking about telling our kids we're going to be different. But that is, thinking about we're telling our kids that they're not going to participate in what the majority of their peers are doing. And that's a heavy ask for kids who are growing up in a world where this is normal. There's, in their minds, nothing wrong with it because this is what everyone's doing.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's keep reading here. He says, this digital technology has given kids access to virtual worlds where they're allowed to roam far more freely than in the real one. And that's going to come back in this article, but think about it. We give them so much freedom. In fact, in his book, The Anxious Generation, that's what Haidt talks about. We've underprotected them in the digital world. And he says, here's an illustration. About 75% of kids ages 9 to 12 regularly play the online game Roblox. Many of you have heard of that, and your kids play it. And not that there's something wrong in and of itself, but he says, where they can interact with friends and even strangers. But most of the children in our survey said that they aren't allowed to be out in public at all without an adult. Fewer than half of 8 and 9-year-olds have gone down a grocery store aisle alone. More than a quarter aren't allowed to play unsupervised, even in their own front yard. Okay, react to that, Erin, because you're sitting here and you seem stunned.
This puts handles on what Haidt talks about in Anxious Generation, that we are overprotecting in the real world, that children are never allowed to be even in their front yard alone without mom or dad's eyes on them the whole time.
You have been like the opposite with our kids. You don't want them in your presence. And so our kids have had lots
I lock them outside
free
for
time.
a certain amount of hours every day. Well, so the contrast of that. So kids are allowed to go on roadblocks, and anybody who has kids has heard of this game. 75% of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they're allowed to go on roadblocks where they can easily get connected with complete strangers who are adults. And yet they're not allowed to ride down to the grocery store on their bike and buy a candy bar with their buddy, or just go play in the street with their friends, or go down to the local park and play basketball and not be supervised and not have a phone sent with them so that we can watch their movements at all times. And you think about how this flips how all of us grew up. That we all grew up with these kinds of freedoms. And Haidt highlights in the article and in his book what is instilled in us when we get these kind of freedoms, where we learn what is actual physical dangers and where we learn how to resolve conflict without mom being there on our shoulder telling us exactly what to say.
Where we fall down and we have to pick ourselves up, and we have to build resilience, and work through difficulties. And this would be maybe a whole different issue, but looking at how number one, our kind of this culture of safetyism has developed, and then number two, the 24/7 news cycle, which feeds us constant bad news, dangers, things that have been happening for all of humanity, horrible evils, but so that creates additional fear. And so many parents operate in complete fear.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't even let your kid walk down a grocery store aisle alone.
Yeah. And this is where Haidt, who is not a Christian, who is an atheist, is sounding the alarm that we're locking the kids in the house because we're afraid of their physical harm that can be done. And so as they're locked in the house, the back door, in a sense, is being opened to the entire world. And this is a world that is completely unsafe for kids.
And what we've seen, this is Anxious Generation, is the incredible increase in the degrading of our kids' mental health. I mean, kids, it's off the charts now. It's an epidemic. Gen Zers, our young people, are not doing well. And so this isn't working. I mean, the results are in. This is not good for our kids. And that's his book, Underprotected in the Real World, Underprotected in the Digital World, and we've overprotected them in the real world. So this is kind of fits what he's been saying. Now he goes on to say this, and this is the key, I think, kind of to the article. He says, yet these are exactly the kind of freedoms that kids told us they long for. We asked them to pick their favorite way to spend time with friends. Unstructured play, such as shooting hoops and exploring their neighborhood, participating in activities organized by adults, such as playing Little League and doing ballet or socializing online. There was a clear winner. And what do you think the clear winner was? It was free play. In-person free play, 45%. 30% chose organized activity in person. Only 25%, the minority, chose online activity. So almost half the kids said they want free play. They want to meet up in person, no screens, and no adult supervision.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that doesn't mean like, yeah, go drop them off, in downtown Los Angeles or something like that.
What they mean by that is that it's not structured time, it's structured by the adults. So it's
and you
a
don't
contrast.
have an adult hovering.
Yeah, it's a contrast to organized sports where you always have a coach or referees or whatever. It's that kids get to go outside or play in the house, but kind of choose their own activity.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that means that there are natural boundaries to that. It doesn't mean, sure, kids are like, yeah, let us do whatever we want. But of course, when we send our kids outside, and we still do this with our 14-year-old, like, go play outside, and we'll say, are you going to head down the street? Basically, we want to know kind of where you're going. And we'll say to him, if plans change, let us know. But
just be home by midnight.
Just be home. Yeah. So it's when parents hear that, they're like, oh, sure, just completely unsupervised. Like, I'm not going to do that. But it's not what they mean. It's just like, hey, go on, live your life, kid, and do whatever you want. It's that the adults aren't instructing them for every minute of what they're supposed to do. They have some freedom and time for their imagination.
Yeah. And at the same time, we also want to affirm you do need unsupervised, like out of the sight of your parents kind of thing is good. Like when our kids, we don't want our kids have just gone outside and they've maybe gone down to the store. They've had to go 3 blocks and go on kind of a major street, but they're sidewalks and they're way out of our, view. That like, that's good for them to have those times as well. Mm-hmm. He says this, and we highlighted this statement in the article, but because so many parents restrict their kids' ability to socialize in the real world on their own, kids resort to the one thing that allows them to hang out with no adults hovering, their phones. So it's a lot of this is our fault because we have overprotected. And hey, look, we understand parents are well-intentioned. No one loves their kids like their parents, and they're well-intentioned. They've wanted to protect their kids, but the overprotection is not healthy for our kids, and this is where good intentions are not enough. You can't just fall back and say, well, I'm well-intentioned and I love my kid and I want to protect them and my intentions are the most important thing. No, it's actually what you do with them as well. Like you want good intentions and you want to put it together with right action to raise healthy children. Plug and play. Sometimes in the midst of busy lives, we need resources that are going to equip us with biblical truth that are also plug and play, meaning we plug it in, we hit play, and then we learn. Not every resource has to require a bunch of study, a bunch of preparation, and that is how we have designed MAVEN's online video courses. You can plug and play. You can purchase the course and watch the videos and use the workbook that we've designed to learn how the Christian worldview applies to every single area of life. These courses are perfect for individual learning. They're perfect for a classroom. If you're at a Christian school, they're great for a Sunday school or a small group or a homeschool co-op. And they are designed for adults and students to really learn what the Christian worldview says about every area of life. And then how do we navigate the culture that we live in? How do we be salt and light? There are 7 different online video courses that Maven offers. Go to equip.maventruth.com to find out more information.
Yeah, I think basically what hits me in that part is that there has been an exchange. So parents are exchanging physical safety. They want their kids physically safe, and they're exchanging that for complete freedom for their kids when it comes to technology. And he talks about in the article, in the poll, it says since the 1980s, parents have grown more and more afraid of unsupervised time will expose their kids to physical or emotional harm. And so he's working with a Harris poll, and in another poll that they did, they asked parents what they thought would happen if 2 10-year-olds played at a local park without adults around. So they give these parents just a scenario. Okay, there's 2 10-year-olds. What do you think would happen if they just played at a local park by themselves? 60% thought the children would likely get injured, and half thought they would likely get abducted.
That's
That
insane.
number is stunning.
Yeah.
That you would think 2 10-year-olds. And then, of course, they go through statistics that on average, children playing unsupervised outside could play outside for 750,000 years before being snatched by a stranger. Like, this is how minuscule the risk is of a child getting abducted, that they could play outside on average for 750,000 years before that would happen. And I love that they put it that way, because that kind of hits you with, oh, geez, that the chances are pretty slim.
Well, and it helps you to see how out of whack our thoughts are.
How unmatched with reality.
Yes, I was going to say, they don't fit reality whatsoever. If half of parents thought their kids would get abducted, the chances are not even 1%. It's less than. I mean, of course, I'm not a statistician here. I can't figure out, but it's on average 750,000 years. I mean, what that shows is our ideas. In our fears far that I can't even overstate it. It's not that they don't just far outweigh the reality. I mean, our fears make us unreasonable. Now, of course, he says, look, yeah, parents, of course, know their neighborhoods best. Some of you maybe aren't. You don't live in a safe place. Okay, that's an exception, but that is the exception, not the rule. And but he says, but the tendency to overestimate risk comes with its own danger. So again, this is the idea of intentions are not enough. You overestimate the risk to your kid. You overprotect them. You don't let them outside. You don't give them unsupervised play. Okay, well, that comes with its own set of problems that far outweigh the some of the other problems by letting them go out and falling down and skinning their knee kind of thing. So and this is just common sense stuff, right? He says without real world freedom, children don't get the chance to develop competence, confidence, and the ability to solve everyday problems. We are coddling, overprotecting, and it is hurting our kids. And kids are unable to function well in the real world. We see this now with these kids who have been on digital devices for a decade and then entering the workforce, entering the job market, and employers from a different generation are just saying, we're not getting the kind of applicants that we want, and kids are having a hard time even keeping a job. And and when I say kids, I mean older kids, like college age and above. But
so I think the part about the exchange of real life and digital life, I think really hits home when he talks in the article about the exchange that we're making. And so he talks about how American families today have been convinced that organized play, organized activities are best for kids, that it keeps them safer and it leads to their success. And I think any parent listening would say, yeah, I've been told if I put my kid in organized basketball, this is the best pathway to their success, or ballet, or fill in the blank. This is their path for success. And then he says, so the Sandlot games gave way to travel ball. Cartwheels at the park gave way to competitive cheer teams. This is what he means. Instead of just going down the park and playing baseball, it's like, no, now you have to be on a competitive baseball team. Do you like doing gymnastics? Great. We'll get you in gymnastics class, and then this will lead to a cheer team, because it all has to be organized. And then he says this line that is very sobering. He says, kids have been strapped into the back seat of their lives, dropped off, picked up, and overhelped. Strapped into the back seat of their lives. I thought about that and how that's so true, that kids aren't shown step by step that they can make some choices and then see what the consequences are.
Yeah.
Make some more choices, see what the consequences are. And parents, of course, are guiding, but eventually our goal, right, is to put the young adult kid who's now a young adult into the driver's seat of their life. Well, these kids have been in the back seat, strapped in, driven around to each activity. Now go do this, now go do that.
Yeah, and the result is anxiety and depression have spiked.
Yeah.
I mean, all the data tells us that in young people. But the consequence isn't just limited to the kids. He says, Haidt says this in 2023, the Surgeon General cited intensive caregiving as one reason today's parents are more stressed than ever. So it's affecting the parents as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said when you were reading this, you love this line. He said, because it summarizes the article. Go outside has been quietly replaced with go online.
Mm.
That's what we substituted.
Yeah. Yeah, like mom and dad have stuff to do. It used to be our parents said, it's Saturday. I have work to do at the house. So go outside, kids. Go find something to do. Or you can stay home and work with me. All kids will choose to go outside and play. We've exchanged that now with go online.
Yeah.
Pull the tablets out, and you guys can play on this while I get stuff done. Parents still have stuff to do. And so instead of saying, beat it, kids, go find something to do, which is so good for them, it's no, here, the iPad will think for you. The iPad will entertain you. And that, again, highlights the exchange we are making an exchange. We don't often think of it that way. We just think of, oh, well, childhood is different today than it was when we were kids. It's not that it's just different, although it is different. It's that we have made an exchange. We have experimented now on kids for several years in this area of technology, and we have results now on this experiment. We're still experimenting, but the results are coming out. And sometimes as parents, we're still experimenting and pretending like this kind of information isn't out there for us to find out,
Mm-hmm.
and to reorient and stop the experiment we're doing and go back to some of the fundamentals of parenting that worked well for us when we were growing up.
Yeah, some of the wisdom of the ages. And it's not just the childhood that's changing, it's the parenting that's changing. It's a different world certainly for kids, but it's us as parents, and that's where I think we need to realize we played the big role in this. Like how we parent.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the practical thing. I mean, so practical takeaway from this. Haidt says, but if parents want their kids to put down their phones, they need to open the front door. Right? That's the practical takeaway. Okay, what do we need to do to help the kids put the phones down? Well, of course, we have a strong view of parents as an authority in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so moms and dads, you should be empowered to lay down the boundaries. I mean, as a parent, if you're paying for a smartphone for your kid, you should have control over that thing. So there's that part of it. But then kind of the idea here is replace it with other things they need. Unsupervised play, open the front door, let them outside. Now, this is where I think the practical, we may have to think a little bit more intentionally about some of the practical, especially for some of us parents who will maybe admit we're overcome with some of the fear and anxiety. And that's where we just, part of it is we have to go to God and say, Lord, I need to give over my fear to you. I fear for my kids, and to, continue daily to hand over that fear to the Lord, and then, and to just cultivate a trust in him that he is sovereign and that there's nothing we can do to control, some of the outcomes of life, all the while using wisdom, right? But some of us are just paralyzed by that fear that we won't even let our kid walk down a grocery aisle alone. But then this is where one thing that's really helpful is finding some other parents, maybe some other parents in the neighborhood, some parents at church. And maybe the baby step for some of us is, okay, let's do this. Let's get some other kids involved, and they can kind of go do unsupervised play together. And maybe you structure it. Maybe it's one of the families in your group has a playground that's within the housing, not district. What's the word I'm thinking of? Development. You've got a playground there. It's a couple blocks away from your house, but maybe it's like, okay, have the other parents over, the other moms over, and then say, hey, we're going to send our 10-year-olds, our 12-year-olds down to the park to go play on their own. And one thing that we've done, and we've tried to do this with our own kids. Our 13-year-old, when he got an e-bike, boy, that gave him some ability to have some freedoms and kind of range far and wide. And so he's taken his e-bike as a 13-year-old, 4, 5, 6, probably longer miles away from our home, where, he's taken it to his speech and debate club, or, down to, the local restaurant to get some food or get a burger or something, or to some friends' houses. And so we try to practice some of this. But that's just where we're going to have to, I think about practical ways we can do this. And it might just be some smaller steps for parents. It could be, okay, just take the example of the grocery store aisle. Maybe the next time you're in the grocery store, you have your shopping list, but then you write on a piece of paper 2 items. You give it to your 9-year-old and you say, okay, go find these items, and let them go find it. And maybe you tell them, okay, I'm going to be right here. I'm going to just stay at this point, and you let them roam. And 5-10 minutes, they come back and bring you those items, and then you praise them, you congratulate them, and how dignifying is that for a kid? That's what the kids are craving. That kind of unsupervised freedom.
Yeah, I think if we're scratching our head for ideas on what this looks like, I think we can just think about, well, what was I doing when I was 9? And what were some of the things that I was able to do?
Can you remember back that far?
Whatever. It's a little bit hard.
That was like 50 years ago.
You do think, I think about how much freedom I did get to have as a kid, and especially when I had a bike, and just what you learn about life, and how to find your mom in the grocery store when you lose her, when you go looking for something and then you have to walk through every aisle just to find your mom again. Kind of these little basic things that what studies are clear about is kids aren't getting to do, even these really basic things. And what I thought was so fascinating about this article from Haidt, who again is an atheist. And why am I bringing this up?
Because you don't like atheists.
Because no, because atheists obviously don't have a Christian worldview. They don't think our origin is from a creator God who had intention and purpose in making human beings. But Haidt says in the article that it seems that kids are desiring this thing that they've never experienced. And I thought that was so fascinating that he pointed that out, because he's right. But what explains that? What could explain a kid's desire for a mom and a dad if we aren't created by a God who designed us a certain way? What would explain a human being, a little human being's desire for freedom to use their imagination and play with friends and explore? Well, the fact that we're image bearers of God explains that. But Haidt's fascinated by how come these digital kids seem to have this desire to be out in nature. And he doesn't, I mean, from his worldview, I don't think he has a sufficient answer. And I just think that's a fascinating thing and something for us as Christians to remember. And you've said this, Brett, you said, I'm not sure we're made for the technological stuff that we have today. And I think about that because, yeah, more and more technological advances are coming. They're happening. 10 years from now, it'll look even crazier.
I could have an AI podcast hostess. Might replace you, Erin.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't say I wanted it.
I'll go get manicures while you and your AI co-host do a podcast.
I wasn't saying I desired it. I'm just saying this is the reality, so you better step up.
So thinking about our nature as human beings and how this technology stuff, like I said, we've been doing an experiment on kids. It turns out we're not made for this.
Yeah.
That kids are not made for the technology they've been handed at a very young age. They can't handle it. And as parents and youth leaders and pastors, when are we going to say, okay, the evidence is there, we can't deny it, we have got to bring all of this under a Christian worldview and say, we've got to live differently because we have the great responsibility of raising and discipling the next generation. And what we've been doing when it comes to the area of technology isn't working. It's hurting kids, and we've got to change.
It's time to course correct. The article is entitled, What Kids Told Us About How to Get Them Off Their Phones. Jonathan Haidt is the author. We will link that in our show notes. And do me a favor, friends, share this with somebody. Share this with another parent and let it become a point of discussion where you and other parents can think about how we can get our kids off of devices into the real world and then help them to live more healthy and happy lives.